An 18-year-old nearing the end of her first trimester is found dead inside her car with a gunshot wound to the head. Police tracked down her killer. It was the father of her unborn child, but he was keeping secrets of his own, which police say drove him to kill. This is Inside the Crime, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Elizabeth Millner. We're in Florida for this crime, and we got our hands on the arrest warrant, which lays out a lot of details. Like the man accused in this terrible crime did this because he didn't want another child, especially with a woman who wasn't his girlfriend. 18-year-old Kailyn Fiengo was 3 months into her pregnancy with her second child when she was found dead inside her car. On November 11th of 2022, officers with the Sanford Police Department were doing their usual patrols. But when an officer spotted a car in the parking lot of Coastline Park, officers noticed the gray Nissan was still running. According to their report, there was condensation on the front windshield. All of the car windows were closed except for the driver's side window. They also noticed blood. Officers noted that there was blood on the ground next to the rear driver's side passenger door and blood on the exterior of the driver's side door. Inside the Nissan was Kailyn's lifeless body, as blood was dripping from her head. Officers noted in their report her seat was leaned back. A small purse was on the passenger floorboard. Her phone was still in the car, so this didn't appear to be a robbery. All of her personal items were still in her car. Officers also recovered a single 9mm shell case on the ground near the car. When crime scene technicians were collecting evidence, Kailyn's friend Simone arrived on scene. Simone told officers she tracked Kailyn there through her Find My iPhone after she didn't hear from her. She told officers Kailyn was supposed to be meeting with her, quote, second baby daddy. Simone even showed the officers who he was, 21-year-old Donovan Faison. According to officers, Simone told them in her interview Kailyn was at Coastline Park because she was meeting up with Donovan, who wanted to talk to her. But here's the issue. Donovan had a girlfriend. That was not Kailyn. According to police, in the days leading up to her murder, Kailyn told Donovan's girlfriend about her pregnancy through Instagram. So Donovan reached out to Kailyn through video call, but Kailyn blocked him. Then he found a way to message her that he wanted to talk. Investigators say a group chat from just a couple days before the murder shows Kailyn sending her friends a screenshot from Donovan's Instagram that said, "We can talk, I'm just not arguing with you." Simone consented to having her phone extracted. Police say there were a lot of screenshots sent by Kailyn showing Donovan was well aware Kailyn was pregnant. He offered to buy her Plan B because he didn't want to have another baby. Kailyn's messages revealed she was apprehensive about meeting up with Donovan. She told her friends, "But I'm skeptical because I feel like his Plan A texting himself failed, so WTF he trying to do now?" Kind of confusing, right? But Simone explained Kailyn and Donovan met up the week before, and during that meeting, Donovan took Kailyn's phone and deleted the messages between them, and sent himself a message from Kailyn's Instagram account saying the baby wasn't Donovan's. Investigators also spoke with the father of Kailyn's first child. He told police that on November 11th, Kailyn dropped off their son to his apartment and that she seemed in a rush. But she made an eerie statement saying, "I hope I don't get punched in the stomach." He didn't know who Kailyn was meeting up with or what she was even talking about. But it's an eerie statement to make because just hours later, she was dead. When investigators searched through Donovan's home, he initially claimed he wanted to clear his name. According to the arrest warrant, Donovan told investigators he and Kailyn's relationship was just sexual. He said on the day of the murder, he went to work, then his mom's house, and he was home by 8:30 p.m. He told police he stayed home with his 1-month-old baby so his girlfriend could go to the club in Orlando. Donovan said he met Kailyn through Instagram. He claimed that the last time he had contact with her was sometime in early October or even September.
Were you supposed to meet up with her?
No, I wasn't supposed to meet up with her. I was supposed to do nothing with her. We didn't have no conversation of meeting up, nothing.
While he knew she was pregnant, he didn't believe the baby was his. He admitted to mentioning an abortion to Kailyn because he didn't want another baby. He also confirmed to investigators Kailyn messaged his girlfriend and told her about the pregnancy, which made him delete all the messages with Kailyn out of respect for his girlfriend. Donovan claimed that he hasn't been to Coastline Park since he was young, but his mom lives near the park. When he was asked why people keep mentioning his name in the investigation, Donovan claimed he didn't know why. Then he told officers he didn't want to speak with them anymore. Even though he claimed he wasn't at the park and that he hasn't spoken with Kailyn, Donovan wasn't that helpful in the investigation. He didn't want to talk to officers anymore, he didn't want to give the passcode to his phone, and he didn't want to give them his mom's address. So officers got a search warrant for his phone. Kailyn's other friends confirmed what Simone initially told officers. One friend told investigators Kailyn told Donovan she was pregnant, and his response was abortion. That same friend told officers Kailyn didn't talk to other men while she was speaking with Donovan. Another friend told investigators Kailyn and Donovan were fighting about her pregnancy because Donovan wanted her to have an abortion. By December 7th of 2022, detectives got the reports back from Donovan's cell phone. Text from November 8th of that year, meaning just days before Kailyn's murder, Donovan sent his friend Woody this message. "Bruh, this just sent me a photo of black and white at the doctors. Wait till I get that drop, it's for her. I'm telling you, just got me heated. On my brother's grave, I'm trying to crop her out. I'm not sparing. On the day of Kailyn's murder, Donovan's girlfriend messaged him on Instagram. Why isn't your location is not working? Oh, because your phone's off. LMAO, weird. Bro, WTF, where the F are you? On November 12th, Donovan tried to cover his tracks. He posted on Instagram that he was in Virginia. But police say that was an old image, actually timestamped from February. Then he made searches like how to clear your location history on settings, how to clear your history on settings, IP address on iPhone. On November 15th, he searched, if your phone is turned off, can you IP address be tracked? Donovan could only get away with it for so long. 10 months after Kailyn's murder, he was arrested and charged with 2 counts of felony homicide, 1 count for Kailyn and 1 count for her unborn child. But by the time he went on trial, that charge was upgraded to first-degree murder. He went on trial this year, and prosecutors are even pursuing the death penalty against him.
The defendant thought about it. He devised a plan to kill an innocent victim. He carried out the plan in cold blood.
But at best, you have evidence of a man that's cheating, of a man that possibly didn't want to have another child. There's no evidence of him being in the car. There's no evidence of him coming around the front. There's no evidence of her reaching for a purse. There's no evidence of him pulling the trigger.
On October 27th, the Seminole County jury found the now 23-year-old guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm while inflicting death, killing of an unborn child by injury to mother with a firearm while inflicting death, and burglary of a conveyance with an assault or battery with a firearm while inflicting death.
We find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder.
But the case isn't over. It's moving into the next phase, the penalty phase, since prosecutors are pursuing the death penalty. And jurors in Florida don't have to be unanimous if their recommendation is death. Since 2023, there just needs to be a supermajority, meaning you only need 8 out of 12 jurors to vote for death. Well, I'm joined now by former Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg, who's actually in our Law and Crime studios today. Dave, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Are you surprised in this particular case that prosecutors are seeking the death penalty?
Oh, not at all.
Yeah.
Because first, you're in a conservative part of the state, and you have some factors here that would qualify it for the death penalty. You can't just say, well, I don't like the guy, we're going to seek the death penalty. Under Florida law, you have to have certain statutory aggravators. Like, was it cold, calculated, and premeditated? Yeah, it sure looks like it. Right? Did it involve another felony? Well, here, it could involve the felony of burglary. You go inside someone's car, that's a burglary. And then you're dealing with an unborn child. So these are 3 possibilities where the prosecution can hang their hat to get the death penalty in this case.
And what aspects of this case overall are the most shocking to you? I mean, there's just so many different aspects. One, that he was cheating on his girlfriend with somebody else. The woman gets pregnant, and then he's like, oh, you need an abortion. She didn't get it. And then she ends up dead. Or is it the fact that he planned this by what I saw from the arrest affidavit, where it's just like all these searches, telling his friends, telling his girlfriend, turning off his phone? What do you think was the most shocking part of this case?
He said the quiet part out loud. In his text messages to his friends, he made it clear what he was going to do. He said he was going to crop her out.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't talking about a picture. And the brazenness, just the feeling that you can murder someone, openly talk about it, and just leave the body in a car and think that the cell phone that you have is not going to be a tracker, that we don't have technology to trace it back to you. The thing that surprised me also is that it took 10 months to arrest him.
I know. I was very surprised by that too.
Yeah, usually when a young woman like that is murdered, and it was clear this was a murder, then you look to see, well, was she pregnant and who's the father? It's a domestic. That's what you're always looking for. First thing, is there a boyfriend, a husband, someone? And that's why here you had someone with means, motive, and opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's why I was a little surprised it took 10 months, but I guess that law enforcement and prosecutors wanted to make sure that they had this guy dead to rights, that there was no chance of a law enforcement mistake that would allow him to go free.
And are you surprised the case only went to trial this year, as opposed to not going out sooner?
Well, yeah, the fact that it took 10 months. Death penalty cases, though, take longer. Once you seek the death penalty, it does slow things down because it is the ultimate penalty, and you want to make sure you get it right. And there are experts that have to come in, and it's a bifurcated trial. First, you have the guilt phase, and then you have the penalty phase, and we're about there for the penalty phase. So it can be a lot quicker, a lot easier if you just seek life in prison. But this office wanted to go for the death penalty. I think it's the right decision. And one more thing about that. In Florida, even though you have to prove at least one aggravator beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously in front of the jury, but the actual vote of the jurors only needs to be 8-4.
Yes.
Which is the lowest burden in the country. And I'm wondering if it will be found to be constitutional if it ever goes up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Do you think that's a possibility, especially with it being a conservative county in Seminole County, Florida? I know that as we're recording this right now, they haven't come back with their decision, but do you think it's looking like it's possible that he could get the death penalty?
In Seminole County, yes.
Wow.
Perhaps if it was in a county south, which is Orange County, then perhaps no. But you don't need as much as you used to when it's only 8-4. When it used to be unanimous, it was very hard to get the death penalty anywhere, even in red counties. But 8-4 is the lowest standard in the country, and because of that, if the verdict is 8-4, then you can rest assured that the defendant will take this all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, saying this is a violation of the Eighth Amendment right against cruel and unusual punishment. If it's 10-2, I think it's solid. I just don't know what the courts will do if it does come back as 8-4 or even 9-3.
And in terms of the mitigating factors you think maybe the defense might present, what do you think would it be that might sway a juror to vote against the death penalty? Do you think it's like a troubled home life? What do you think it could be?
That's a benefit the defense has. See, prosecutors have statutory aggravators. They're limited what they can bring up. Defense can bring up anything.
Okay.
His mother didn't love him enough. You remember the Parkland massacre?
Yes.
I don't mention the person's name, the murderer's name. He doesn't deserve to ever have his name mentioned again.
Agreed.
But he was spared the death penalty. It was 9-3, which is the reason why Florida lowered the standard from unanimous to 8-4 because of that case. But you remember they talked about how his mother smoked in the womb. While he was in the womb, she smoked while she was pregnant. So you can bring up anything. Like that justifies this. Like, give him a pass because his mother smoked while she was pregnant with him. So they'll bring up anything and everything. They'll bring up his mental health. They'll bring up his home life. They'll bring up that if he's a father elsewhere, I don't know if he has other children or... And they will try to tug at the heartstrings of the jurors. Before, you just have to find one juror, but now you got to find 5.
Yeah. So as the former Palm Beach County State Attorney, how difficult is it to come to that decision? I can't imagine you take that decision lightly if you're going to be like, I am pursuing the ultimate punishment and that being death.
It's the hardest decision you have to make because it's the most serious. It is actually life and death. There are very few jobs in government, I can't think of many more, where you actually have the power over someone's life and death. But not really, because even though you seek it, it's up to the jury to make that decision. And so you do take it seriously, though, because it slows everything down. It sets a lot of different things in motion. And you also have to be careful because you don't get a second chance at it if you get it wrong. So you need to make sure it's for the right cases and the right evidence. But if the statutory aggravators are there, you go for it. Now, different circuits do it differently. My circuit in Palm Beach County, we had a committee, and the committee advised me. And I remember when I first got elected state attorney, I had this committee of all the top homicide prosecutors and all the most experienced prosecutors, and they voted to waive the death penalty in a case. And it was 8-0. This was the committee, 8 people in the committee. So I said, okay, next one.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and stared at me. I was like, what? And they said, it's your decision.
Yeah.
So they're just advisory. Ultimately, it's the state attorney's decision. That's why we're at the top of the food chain there, because we have to make those weighty calls like that.
And I, again, can't imagine you take that loosely at all. Well, we'll also see how this continues to play out because we know that the jury will be making that decision very, very soon. Dave Ehrenberg, I want to thank you so much for your time. It was great to see you traveling all the way from Florida here to New York. So thanks for joining me today.
Great to be with you, Elizabeth.
We're also joined virtually by law enforcement instructor Sunny Slaughter. Sunny, thank you so much for being here today. What's your reaction to this case? I mean, it's really a brutal murder. I mean, shooting a young pregnant woman at that in the head and just leaving her body there to just die.
Thank you for having me as always. I really, unfortunately, our conversations are never anything fun. And this particular case is one of the most heinous cases that, I've done, in these past couple of weeks. These are recurring criminal acts and they're so violent. She was very young. She was already a mom. And then she was only in her first trimester,
Mm.
and it merely took a text to the child's father to end her life. I'm not sure what people are thinking about when it comes to these relationships and how they want to end things. And ending someone's life by shooting them in the head while they're pregnant with your child or any child is just, it is a sign of where our humanity, the lowness of our humanity, and um, it's beyond criminal.
Yeah.
It's just it's just too much, too much.
It is too much, exactly. Because thinking about just what investigators found inside of her car, they saw the sonogram that was inside her car, and as well as her child's car seat in the back of the car, too.
Mhm.
And just with all of what investigators found kind of in those initial months of the investigation, why do you think Donovan's arrest came nearly 10 months after Kailyn was killed? I was really surprised by that because it appeared like there was a lot of evidence against him.
I think what law enforcement is working when they're doing it right,
Mhm.
we always want things to happen quickly. But I would, as an instructor, I want law enforcement professionals to really do their due diligence to really shore up the investigative methodology and how making sure they talk to everyone, making sure that they have everything, all of the dots connected, because what we don't want to see is that they do a quick investigation because everything appears clear, and they leave out something that then is critical and allows a criminal defendant to walk away from a crime that we are absolutely sure they committed, but we didn't do enough due diligence to ensure that they were also convicted of it.
And do you think any parts of the investigation could have been handled differently?
I'm not sure why it took 10 months. That is a very long time. But I do think that there are parts of the investigation where immediately from because she was still pregnant, to get everybody in to interview, to ensure that the timelines, it doesn't seem like, unless there's a backlog in the system or something, and they needed to have evidence that they wanted to have for trial in play, that they just made sure. I just think it was a little longer than I would have guessed, but I think if they did what they needed to do, hopefully they didn't miss anything in a 10-month long investigation. I'd rather for them to go slow and get it right than to go fast and get it wrong.
Yeah, because despite how the TV shows always make it appear to be, it doesn't happen as quickly as a 44-minute episode or anything like that, or in the matter of days. It does take a lot of time for these investigations to be worked through, combed through, especially when you have things like digital forensic evidence that has to come back, be processed, all of that stuff. And I noticed that during one of the first interviews that Donovan did with police, he said that he wanted to be away, probably from his girlfriend who could hear things, and also deny that he impregnated Kailyn, but it seemed like he also went to great lengths to cover it up. He posted that he was in Virginia, even though investigators found that that photo was actually from months earlier. He turned off his phone when he met up with Kailyn in the park. He just went to great lengths to cover it up. But what's your reaction to that?
You know, I keep finding that these men are having affairs. And
Mm,
any time that you have an affair, you know that there are consequences of your actions if you are not being careful.
yeah.
And the fact that he wanted to cover up the affair and didn't want to hurt his girlfriend, he didn't think about her then, when he was having the affair. And he went through to such great lengths, as you said, to just cover up the details of the relationship, the details of the encounter with him being the last person, as if law enforcement doesn't have enough investigative skill and wherewithal. And now that even technology to
Yeah.
show, you can't use a photo from several months ago or several weeks ago that is not digital stamped and that they can't look at and determine. We can investigate weather, we can investigate conditions on the day of, and where you say you are. And then there are often other photos that are of where we are in different moments that we don't even think exist. So the fact that he went to such great lengths really shows his criminal intent and his mind of wanting to cover it up and remove himself from anything involved in it.
Mhm. And even just in terms of him kind of putting out those searches too about how to, take down the IP address and where will your phone be tracked in certain locations, it really just seemed like he went to great lengths, even though he swears he didn't know why people were putting his name out there in the investigation, that he didn't impregnate Kailyn or any of that sort, but then he went to those lengths too, which was kind of puzzling a little bit there. And in terms of just prosecutors pursuing the death penalty in this particular case, are you surprised by that? I mean, it is in the state of Florida, which means only 8 jurors have to come back to vote for death for him to get the death penalty. What's your reaction to that?
You know, I I've never necessarily been for the death penalty, but then there are cases and instances where I think people need to remove themselves from society completely without any constant going back and forth with families about the loss of a loved one. And I think Florida is the state. Florida, I'm not sure how constitutional it is, even though, we've seen several trials and I've been on those cases where the death penalty has been handed down. 8 is not a full 12.
Right.
There's always argument for it, but I do believe that this case is striking enough until we have to do something to ensure that this is not someone that leaves another person in this condition, that leaves another family and others, because this young lady's child is going to grow up without a mother, without even a sibling. And, there are consequences to the actions, and these are the consequences.
Yeah, and as we're recording this right now, the jury hasn't come back with their decision. But if
Right.
you had a crystal ball, what do you think their decision might be?
That they're going to convict him and sentence him to death.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's interesting too to see how that'll continue to play out. My final question to you, Sunny, is what's your reaction as we're talking about this, as we're talking about the investigation, we're talking about the legal aspects of this case. But, one thing that just always sticks out to me with this particular case is the motive here, that he didn't want
Yeah.
another child, that he was pressuring Kailyn to get an abortion. She was just at the end, like you had mentioned, of her first trimester. But when we look at the motive here, where he's saying, I don't want a kid, I don't want another child, so I'm going to kill the mother of my soon-to-be child. What's your thoughts on that overall?
That just shows the callousness of the individual. I mean, there are plenty of people who don't want another child. She may not have even put him on child support. To go to that extreme, if that is your extreme, then I think the consequences meet the extremity and the extremeness of your heinous and callous act. He said he was going to crop her out,
Mm-hmm. On his brother's
and
grave.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that is so telling,
Yeah.
and it is so chilling, which means he has no remorse. He had no forethought, no regret, no anything. To say those words, to talk about his brother's grave, he meant that. He did that, and whatever happens to him is what he absolutely deserves. This is just because you don't want to. If he had not had an affair,
Yeah.
we might not be here.
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like that's also a lesson too, where I'm kind of like, okay, was it because you were trying to hide from your girlfriend that you got another woman pregnant? Or is it because you truly just didn't want another child? Either way, both are just unacceptable for you to carry out a murder and shoot and kill this young, innocent woman. Sunny Slaughter, I want to thank you so much for your time and your insight into this case. I really appreciate it. I know it's a very, very hard topic to discuss.
Thank you so much. And I also want to remind people that October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that we should consider these crimes domestic violence murders. We should not, even though they might not be counted in the numbers, I think we need to do at least recognize the gravity of what continues to happen.
Absolutely. Again, Sunny Slaughter, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Donovan Faison's death penalty phase of his trial is expected to last at least 2 days. If the jurors vote against the death penalty, he'll still be facing the rest of his life in prison. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Inside the Crime. I'm Elizabeth Millner.